Greetings and salutations, loyal viewers of this channel. My name is Sean, and today we're going to revisit the city of San Francisco. However, we're not going to talk about crime per se in the city of San Francisco. We're not going to talk about any of the usual things that bother us about this particular city. Today we're going to talk about a war that has been waged on the streets for years in major metropolitan areas, and that, of course, is one of the most important wars of our time, wars over parking spaces, because there's a bunch of problems in the city of San Francisco related to parking, people saving spaces, this leading to disputes, sometimes even leading to mortal combat, which, by the way, as somebody who lives in a major metropolitan area who ends up getting into parking disputes from time to time, can say this is totally worth it, definitely worth risking your life for a parking space, especially in some of these neighborhoods, and that's what I want to talk about today. But before we do, I want to thank everybody who signed up over at actualjusticewarrior.com/join.
Give me the money. Give me the money. Okay?
And remind you that this show is available in podcast form. Link to those in the description.
We're going to start with those parking wars in San Francisco and orange cones that have become the latest weapons in the battle to secure that parking spot.
That's a bit old school here. People are using the cones to save a parking spot close to their homes. It's a popular tactic in the Excelsior district where much of the neighborhood is not regulated by those parking permits.
So we get the basic premise of this particular video from these people right here, and they say, hey, look, we have this neighborhood. It is the Excelsior district of the city of San Francisco, and what is going on is that people are laying down their cones, staking their claim on spaces that are close to their house in the hopes of fooling people into not parking in those spaces, and that way they can have it when they return home from work. Now, I will say that as somebody who lives in New York City, as somebody who experiences this, I will move traffic cones, road barriers, whatever, whenever, when I want to park. Even if there is a legitimate construction situation that is going on, I will remove the cones, and the reason I will do that is typically I'm looking for a space in the evening and I'm out in the morning, and honestly, it is not my problem at all whatsoever, whatever neighborhood I park in, if you have an electrical issue or a plumbing issue and my car is preventing that from getting fixed. I am obviously more important than you in your neighborhood, therefore, I will remove construction cones and block Con Edison from doing their desperately needed work, because if we're being perfectly honest, if we're being serious, my car being close to me in my destination in a free space is just way more valuable than that. So I understand the tactics right here, but I just want to say, as somebody who is very big city savvy, you kick those cones out of the way, you remove them, you don't play that game, you honestly thank the people for trying to save their own spaces, when in reality, they are saving a space for you.
In case you're wondering, this is illegal.
Yeah, I know it's illegal. That's why you kick the cones out of the way. I just finished covering that.
It's street cleaning day in parts of the Excelsior, so we saw plenty of open spaces, and even residents double parked waiting for the street cleaning restrictions to expire so they could claim their spots. We also noticed lots of orange cones, some on the sidewalks seemingly on standby, and a few on the street, likely keeping a parking spot open. It's a tactic that sparked a good amount of debate.
Well, if they can get away with it, good luck to them, I suppose.
So here you have a real American right here who says, you know what? If you can get away with this, if you end up fooling somebody and you end up getting a space in this way, then my hat is off to you. I support you in that endeavor. However, I do find it annoying if I were to get tricked by this particular cone situation. And I just want to say, I appreciate this man for being a real American, for understanding that when the system is corrupt, when the city of San Francisco is corrupt, you must fight back, you must disobey, and I understand his support for this civil disobedience, and I just want to say I'm right on board with him. I mean, honestly, ever since the COVID-19 pandemic, where they started putting up these outdoor restaurants in parking spaces, things have gotten rough in the city of New York. So any tactic that you can deploy that I can detect immediately and inadvertently use it for my benefit, I'm going to be in favor of, because obviously these major metropolitan areas are not in the habit of conserving parking, because fundamentally they are anti-driving. They hate cars, and you guys out there in the audience might say, well, I like public transportation and cars are really inefficient because according to these numbers it spends this percentage of the time parked. And all I have to say to you guys out there in the audience who are going to type that nonsense in my comments is shut up. shut your face. I never want to hear from you again. I will block and delete your comments. I will ban you not only from commenting on my videos, but all videos on YouTube, because you need to shut your face. Nobody likes public transportation. Nobody likes those bike things. Nobody likes those outdoor restaurants. And if you are one of those people who do like any of the things that I just listed, you know what? You're a horrible person and you're ruining the United States of America. You personally are responsible for the decline of Western civilization. So again, shut your face.
The neighborhood has lots of single-family homes. Some of them are multi-generational.
And there's, 2 or 3 families with 3 cars, and then they're not using the garages, and there's only so much public parking.
It's also one of the city's non-permitted and non-metered neighborhoods. So residents say people who live elsewhere park here, and that sometimes squeezes out locals.
Now, what they're talking about right here is this residential parking permit system that is very common in places like Boston, Massachusetts, that essentially block off outsiders from parking in these particular areas. And they're also saying that these spaces are free, aka meterless, and they're citing that as a reason why the parking situation gets so crazy over here. And I understand that. That being said, they're actually kind of hinting that one of the solutions to this might be to put meters up everywhere, and honestly, I can't stand that. As far as the residential parking thing, I could take it or leave it, honestly. I understand if you live in a neighborhood and all you have available to you is street parking, that you as a resident want to be able to park there, but you know what? Sometimes when I'm visiting somebody that doesn't have a garage, this really annoys me. And when I was in the city of Boston, and in fact, it's in a lot of places in Massachusetts, this really got on my nerves because I usually beat the system and park for free, but it turns out those residential nonsenses really ruin things. They really mess it up, and honestly, I am not in support of it. That being said, the city of Miami, where I went to for one of those Tim Pool event thingies, the live on stage kind of deals, was one of the worst ones because they actually have 24/7 meters, which honestly I find to be absolutely disgusting, because what kind of godless savages wouldn't even have free parking on Sundays in their major metropolitan area? Absolutely disgusting, absolutely shameful. In New York City, we have free parking on Sundays, but in the city of Miami, in certain areas, they don't have it, and honestly, that's because they're uncivilized. That's because they're monsters, so anybody who proposes metered parking as a solution is equally monstrous.
It's also one of the city's non-permitted and non-metered neighborhoods. So residents say people who live elsewhere park here, and that sometimes squeezes out locals.
I used to park 7 blocks away and walk down because I couldn't find parking.
Now, this is an absolutely desperate situation when in the city of San Francisco, one of the car-breaking capitals of the United States of America, this woman is parking 7 blocks away in order to actually go to her home in the evening, which is crazy in every way because you are all but guaranteed to come back to a broken window. And again, this is why I'm not necessarily against having the neighborhood permitting system. Also, this cone thing is rather annoying when it does fool people, because there's a lot of people who are intimidated by the presence or the illusion of authority, so they will back down when they see these cones. In fact, I actually had a neighbor who took it a step further. He wouldn't do cones. He would actually pour cement into 2 buckets, stick 2 poles in them, put a chain in between them, and that's how he would save a space in front of his place. And the crazy thing is if he pulled up and that space and other spaces were open, he wouldn't remove the chains to park there. He would actually park somewhere else and keep holding down that space. He would only take it if it was a last resort, so you had a perpetually blocked off parking space in my neighborhood throughout all my years growing up until I decided to deal with it. Because you see, this neighbor didn't like me very much. He had a lot of problems. Some of them were mental problems. So one of the things that he would do was call in tips to the police for crimes in and around the area. And on one fateful day, they decided that they were going to haul me in for questioning, to which I refused all questioning, demanded a lawyer, and then upon them driving me back home, I pointed this little bucket thing out, and the police ended up taking it. And the moral of that story is don't mess with me. The police are going to jack your stuff if you do, and that's because you played stupid games and then you won stupid prizes. And yes, I was 14, so this was probably close to 20 years ago, and I'm still bitter about it, but I won that exchange in your face, you crazy neighbor. You absolutely deserved it, and honestly, you were pretty old, so you're probably dead now, but whatever, in your face, and I will go tell it to your grave.
According to 311 data, nearly 800 parking complaints have been called in the last 3 months for everything from people blocking a driveway to cars parked in a bike lane.
So first of all, I just want to say right off the top that is not even close. That is clearly and obviously blocking the driveway, and since drivers remain supreme in my world, in my universe, if I was the dictator of everything, this person, absolute scumbag, absolute violation. But the next thing that they say right here, disgusting, nonsensical. Anybody who complains about this, monster.
For everything from people blocking a driveway to cars parked in a bike lane.
Listen, parked in a bike lane is not a violation. Parked in a bike lane, in my view of how the world should work, is not a crime. It's honestly a public service. In reality, these bike lanes are installed in my parking spaces, so they should be removed, because how dare you tell me that your bicycle needs that space more than my car? Absolute nonsense in every possible way. And honestly, this is what ends up leading to these situations where people are fighting so desperately over parking spaces. Now, to be clear, there is an element of supply and demand. There are too few spaces for the number of cars in a particular area, so I understand that, but the fact of the matter is, all the things that these major metropolitan areas do in order to limit and carve up parking spaces is absolutely disgusting. And don't think I don't notice that they don't tend to do these bike lanes in places where there's metered spaces. They always are eating up the free stuff. So the city of San Francisco is making this much, much worse, and then people are complying with this nonsense, buying into bike lanes having a right to exist, when in reality, they absolutely do not. When I was a kid, my parents told me that you're not supposed to ride your bike in the street. Now all of a sudden the city of San Francisco is saying ride in the street, and I find that to be horrible. So you know what? You take your bike lane and you take your complaints related to that, and you take them out of this country to your communist hellhole that you want to come from if you're in favor of the bike lanes. And again, if you disagree with me, don't even write a comment, because I banned you already from commenting on all YouTube videos from this day until your last day, until you change your mind.
Removing illegally placed cones is a job of public works crews, and a spokesperson says the department will send out an inspector when they get a 311 complaint and collect the cone if it's not being used legally.
I mean, honestly, if you're deterred by this one particular cone, then you're not cut out for this parking game. You guys don't understand this, and I know a lot of you don't live in major metropolitan areas. I know a lot of you actually don't understand this, but you should be able to parallel park in front of this cone, and oftentimes when I would see cones like that were placed, sometimes even two of them, one of the things that I would do to mock the person who placed the cones was parallel park in between said cones. The other thing that I would do is take the cones and then put them in front and in back of my car, just like right near it, just so people think maybe they placed it wrong and I was able to park there. But the fact is, if you're deterred by this, you're not cut out for the game, and that is just a proven out fact. You see, when I was in university, and everybody knows I went to school in Manhattan, one of the worst driving boroughs in terms of free parking that you could possibly be, I was fortunate enough to be seeing some lady that I'm no longer seeing, and during the course of that relationship, one of the things that kept me coming back was the ability to discover parking in uptown Manhattan around Central Park West, and honestly, that was the foundation of the relationship. I had used the opportunity of coming to visit her to memorize all the parking signs, and even when we departed, even when we split, even when it was over, even when I never talked to her again, guess what? I still parked in that neighborhood, took the train short ride downtown in order to do things that I wanted to do, and then late in the evening I would have access to my vehicle in a completely free space, and I would use that to drive home, because these small major metropolitan areas, incredibly easy to get to and from places in the evening when there's no traffic. This was the foundation of that entire romantic relationship. This was the core of it, and the reason why that was the case is because I take parking incredibly seriously, because I'm a driver. And you know what? Again, you public transportation people, you just don't understand operating at that level. You don't understand the wars that people go through. You don't understand how the enemy of all drivers are those stupid city bike things, those stupid outdoor restaurants, and anything and everything that obscures my ability to park for free.
According to the SFMTA, there are no special permits allowing residents to put a cone or other marker in the street to save a spot, except for construction and maintenance crews.
Now look, one of the reasons why I'm going so soft on this obvious law breaking, and I know you guys are going to say you're a law and order guy, Sean, why are you defying your principles right here, is because the cones are one of those things that you could move if you know that they're not legitimate, and obviously in this case they're not legitimate. And the alternative to this is a thing that I see a lot of people do, where they park their car in two spaces in a way that it takes up room and you can't fit a second car there, and that I can't stand. In my old street, same block where you had the guy with the buckets, down one block over, so I'm already out of spaces, people would do that for the whole entire street. And I just remember one day I thought to myself, at 3 o'clock in the morning when I was struggling for spaces and I had to deal with all these cars taking up two spaces, that I just wanted to bang on everybody's door and say, you parked like an a-hole, and then just tell them to their face that I hated them, I hated everything that they stand for, I wished harm on their kids, I wished that their school would shut down and they would be forced to get educated in the park, learn from squirrels and whatnot, because I absolutely could not stand these people based on the fact that they did that, because there is no workaround in terms of that situation. So the cones are a positive alternative in my view when it comes to that, because honestly, there is nothing more frustrating than being like a foot off from being able to legally park just because some guy parked like an a-hole. I absolutely can't stand it. You should be against it, and the alternative is that, so that's why I'm going a little bit soft on the people in this particular neighborhood.
The SFMTA spokesperson also says residents can petition to have the area turned into a permitted parking zone. Supervisor Asha Safai says that's something residents already tried a few years ago, but it lacked enough support.
So this local news segment says in this particular area, they petitioned for this kind of permitted parking situation, and then they cut to a supervisor that honestly exemplifies absolutely everything that you hate about a Democrat in one sentence. In fact, this is probably the number one reason above any kind of policy related to taxes, economics, or anything like that, that I will not be voting blue anytime soon, and it's attitudes like this.
Safai says more bus service through the area could also help.
If we have a robust public transportation system, people become less reliant on cars.
I just want to say, I don't know this supervisor. I've never met him. I understand that he might have a family, he might have friends, he might have neighbors that find him to be a joy. But to be clear, and I mean this no joking at all whatsoever, dead serious, I hate this man. I hate everything about him. I hate his family. I hate his friends. I hate his neighbors. I hate his house. And I hate his little bicycle that he pretends to ride in order to sound like a good guy in real life. This guy just said that the solution to an already constricted parking zone is more bus services, because that will make people less reliable on cars. And honestly, all I could say is shut up. Shut your face. Oh my God, I can't stand this person. If I'm being perfectly honest, this is one of the worst people in the United States of America. Do you really think that carving up bus stops, eating up more parking spaces is going to make the situation better? No, he doesn't think that. He wants people less reliant on cars because he's ideologically opposed to them. In fact, it's people like him that limit parking garages in major metropolitan areas that put us in this position in the first place. Because if you see, you have parking garages in and around this area that people can pay for, the people not ready to fight for the free parking, the people not ready to go to war, not ready to battle, they'll be off the battlefield. And then it will be left to people like me and these people with the cones to fight it out in the streets, old school style, in order to keep these parkings. But you know what doesn't help that situation? Not expanding parking garages. You know what doesn't help that situation? Buses, bike lanes, city bikes, all this other nonsense, restaurants that take up spaces that ruins major metropolitan areas. And you know who's behind almost every one of these initiatives? Democrats. Democrats like this person right here. Democrats like this Board of Supervisors member who sees the problem of scarcity of parking spaces and the battles that people have to fight through due to the policies instituted by him that say, hey, you know what? Let's make this a little bit worse. Let's emphasize public transportation. Again, shut your face. I hate you so much. I hate everything about you. I will never forgive you for this. And I am likely to almost never be in the city of San Francisco, let alone in this neighborhood. And I still feel that way. Honestly, these people are ruining society. These people are the enemies of freedom, the enemies of the republic, because driving equals equals freedom, free parking equals freedom, and buses are tyranny and communism, and they're fake, and they smell bad. So yeah, I absolutely can't stand this. I understand the wars that are going on in the city of San Francisco. I hope that you guys understand what is going on in these big cities. You understand that this is a problem that fundamentally crushes the spirit of the American dream, and you come out against it. And again, if you're one of those people, if you're out there in my comments, because I know you are, because you're a little nerd, and you're thinking about European cities, and you're like, oh, it's so much more efficient. Shut your face. I really don't have anything else to say to you. Now, that's all I really have for you guys today. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, then show them by leaving a like, subscribe for more content, follow me on the social medias, support me via the support links in the description of this video. This has been me talking about parking wars in San Francisco. Till next time.